Testing 1.
Testing 2.
Testing 3.
Nature Safe 4.
Oh, very good. I
he's
like
been-
it. He's got
excellent.
straight in there.
We've got a proper podcast today.
Yeah, proper branding.
He's gone off piste already.
Yes, yeah.
Well, brilliant. Welcome, everybody, to the Testing Podcast. This is an extra special episode, I'd say, because we've got a very special guest here, Tullis Matson from Nature Safe. So we are going to be talking a little bit of sperm and a little bit of science and reproductive technology, but we're also going to be talking about the great work you do as a charity and what we hopefully can do to support that. And we're also going to talk about climbing mountains, jumping out of planes, driving cars. Who knows where this conversation is going to go? But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, I think we're very much on a pre-intro that we spoke about on a coffee. We've pretty much realised we're all just adrenaline junkies in this space right now.
Yes.
So
I like laughing a lot.
that's it.
Yeah.
Welcome to the
Boys and
podcast.
ties. Yeah. Brilliant. But no, thank you so much for giving up your time and coming down, because you're not a local man, are you?
Not local, but actually, my old stomping ground was not far from Newbury.
Oh, okay.
So I used to be a jockey many years ago, and I used to be near Newbury. I used to be racing. So yes, actually, this bit further away from normal, but yeah. I do know this area very, very a little bit. But no, it's great to be here, and I really appreciate Testing for the support, Michael, and everybody. You know what you've done for Nature Safe, so I really appreciate that side of it. And yeah, it's very exciting what we're up to.
Yeah, because you've just climbed Kilimanjaro, haven't you?
Yes, so I have the scars on my legs still to prove. Although actually the scars on my leg, I had a massive. That wasn't even on Kili. That was the first night in a hotel actually, and had a few drinks, as you do. I'm walking back with Verity, who's one of the blind lady, trying to lead her back, and I fell into a garden. Or a rose bed, which had about a foot drop, and I think it could have been all over on that one set. I cut all my leg open, blood everywhere. But so that was before we even started climbing. So that's just how but yeah, the climb was amazing, incredible. Never again, but it was incredible.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have to explore that a little bit as well. But the first question I want to ask you, which I don't know if you want to answer this or not, was Tullis. Well, I think it's an awesome name. Where does that come from?
Problem is you can't hide if you're called John or something like that.
Yeah.
But Tullis, it's a family name. It's always been a middle name. My father's Richard Tullis, but yeah, it's the first time it's actually a first name. I think the first lady, I might be wrong, I think the first lady ever to climb Everest, she was called Mrs. Tullis.
Oh, right.
So there is a bit of climbing in the name somewhere.
Yeah.
There has been a genetic.
Yes, today. But yeah, I think it originated from Scotland.
Right.
So yeah, it's quite nice having an unusual name.
Yeah.
In some respects, but yeah.
Brilliant. So I've known you through, we met you through Michael. Michael met you, I don't know, what's the story? What's the backstory?
Years ago.
Or is that not to be shared?
No, we can.
I think we can share most of it. But I think it was some new devices on sperm separation or something. Was it about I think it's the plates or so. I can't really remember now. Is it the... It was like the separation of the sperm cells or something.
Yeah, so we do a lot of work with sperm, obviously, from sperm separation through to measuring sperm quantitatively and qualitatively. So I think I reached out to you knowing that you're into sperm and stallion sperm and breeding and so forth, and we got some new technology which we wanted to explore with you, really, to see whether it's going to be useful in your practice. I think I just picked up the phone and got through to you amazingly, and we had a conversation. Went, this actually could be quite interesting, and then we arranged a trip with Professor Darren Griffin and came up to see you.
Oh right, that's right. Yes, I remember Darren. Yes, because obviously we've done a bit more work with him. But I think that was, if I remember, it was quite some time ago, and that was about sperm separation, wasn't it? Trying to get the right sperm cells with the right DNA through, and it was way ahead of its time at that point from our side, because now I think they use those technologies on ICSI, which is very prominent, and for us it wasn't sorting enough sperm cells, but for a small amount it was perfect to get those. So I look back at that now, and I've just come back from a conference in Belgium, and that's all the talk is about ICSI in the animal, and they're using those technologies now. So it's amazing how we talked about it years ago, and we sort of said, we don't know whether it work for our Pacific need, but for ICSI, it's going to be amazing. And there it is now. They use it a lot. So that's great.
Well, it was very exploratory, quite a few years ago. It's probably about 4 years ago, something like that. Certainly before that nasty bug that separate went all the way around the world. But I think those sort of technologies are really, really improving outcomes, not just in the human sort of species, which I normally deal with, but I think in animal species as well, and certainly horses. I think
we need to give this some context, because now all we know is that Tullis has done something with mountains and we don't know why. And a jockey. But I haven't actually asked you why you're sorting sperm.
Yeah, and who are you?
Yeah, who are you?
It goes right back, really, because we're farmers. Basically, at the end of the day, we started off farming, and my father used to make a ton of cheese a day, and I had cows and pigs, but then got out of that, and then we went to horses, and it was actually through an accident with a horse. They were naturally covering one day, and the stallion ruptured the mare inside through natural covering, and the mare passed away. And it's really, really sad. And I think in life, all these things approach us, and I reckon without that accident, I wouldn't be sitting on this table today, because that led me on a path of thinking, well, there must be another way of doing it. AI, artificial insemination, it's something else nowadays, but was never really done in the UK. It was in the rest of the world, and I really believe, and a lot of you might be sitting around this table, certain things have transformed your life, taken you on a certain path, and that was my trigger, really. I went off to New Zealand. They, with the North and South Island, they've been doing AI for quite some time because they didn't want to shift horses backwards and forwards, so they collected a seed and put it in the post. I thought, why can't we do this in the UK? Yeah. So literally came back. I used to love hatching chickens and all things like that, and I got all my incubators. I cleaned them all out, put all my AI stuff in the incubators, very sort of rudimentary way of doing it. And I think I was doing everything wrong to start with, but you learn from mistakes. I sort of learned, but didn't learn. And then learned from my mistakes. And then we were just in the right place at the right time. And it just snowballed with the equines. And it just got bigger and bigger. And my passion is, I've always liked new technologies, always liked to have the latest phone. And I thought, how can we use technologies to save rare breed horses? And I was very lucky. I was a trustee of the Rare Breed Survival Trust. And cryopreservation is an amazing tool, which we're going to talk about. I mean, really is. And obviously on the human side, you use it a lot. And we thought, how can we use that to save these amazing horses that I've got pictures of my grandfather ploughing the fields in the 1940s, putting food on the table. They were the lifeblood. They really fed the country, those heavy horses. And now we see them disappear. Is that right or wrong? Or should we try and save them? And I feel they're part of our heritage. And we're just using that technology really to try and see if we can. And that's really where it started. And then the Suffolk Punch, there's 80 females left in the country. There's 300 or 400 left in the world. And they're part of our heritage. So we use the technologies to try and really stop them from disappearing, going extinct. And that's really what led to it.
Yeah. So why do you think that the UK was so far behind from other countries' point of view? And because farming has obviously been huge impact on agriculture, but also livestock and so forth. So you would think that there is a natural sort of progression there, but do you think it just got stuck in the history in the past?
Virtually, yeah. So they've been doing it for the bovine world. So I think even my grandfather was doing AI with bovine back in the 1960s, but I can't. But it's been going a long time. But the horse side, we're a very traditional country. We like our traditional ways of doing things with the natural covering. The thoroughbred industry doesn't allow AI, and we're a big thoroughbred country. So we've been doing natural covering from that side. So there was the odd place doing, but there wasn't. It really didn't get going, and then it exploded. And I did a presentation the other day. In 1980, 90% of horses were done by natural covering. Now, 40 or odd years later, 90% do artificial insemination. So it's done a real turnaround. Basically.
I didn't realise it was that much. To be fair,
it's total turnaround. And a lot of this technology on the animal world, especially in the bovine world, there's a lot of R&D gone into it, and a lot of to try and make AI, really valuable for those animals, and that's been thrown across the horses, and we know that's been thrown across to the human sector actually, and vice versa. So there's a really good synergy from talking to you guys here today to what we're doing, and I find it absolutely fascinating on that side of things.
Yeah.
So were you one of the first in the space in terms of artificial insemination with horses then? But were you
in the UK? So we were on the first. There was a couple of people playing us, but we were without doubt one of the first ones to really push it out there. There was a couple of other places that are doing it, but really capitalise on it and set up a business surrounding it.
Yeah, and what is that business? Because you still run that now, don't you?
So we got Stallion AI Services, but then in '96 we split. So my brother came back and did the mares, and it's a family farm. So he's got the mare side, and I've got the stallion, but they're two totally separate businesses. It was a hard wrench to go away from the mares. 'Cause I love the mare side because, as we know, with the female side is reproductively is really important to get that right, as well as the stallion side. But like anything in life nowadays, specialists come into it, and you can't be a jack of all. Well, you can be a jack of all trades and master of none. But the idea was we're really focusing on semen now, really focusing on the stallion side, and that gave us a really good platform then to change things, preservation and as a business as well.
I bet most people would have no idea about this, but they wouldn't think about it at all, would they? You know, you watch a horse on TV, like in the horse racing, or you go to the racing, you wouldn't think this world exists, would you? Like
and there's so many different breeds as well, though, isn't there, Tullis? It's not just the show jumping and various other horse racing that most people associate with horses, but there's multiple breeds that are really significant and important.
There's 14 native rare breed horses in this country. You know, a lot of you may have heard of the Shires and maybe the Shetlands or the Clydesdales and those heavy horses, but you may have not heard of something called the Eriskay pony. You know, there's less than 100 of them left. So of the 14 natives, 12 are considered rare. Right. And some of them are extreme, so less than 100 females. You always do it how many females are left. Yeah. So, how could we use technology to save them? And one of the things which was really exciting, we looked at the bovine industry, and they sex the semen because they want more heifers. Right. So one of the big milestones when it comes to conservation side was, for the horse side of things, was, well, why can't we sex semen for for these suffer punches? And when you get inbreeding is what makes breeds, and we're going to come on to this amazing charity in a minute, species go extinct. Yeah. And nature's incredible because it sort of says we shouldn't be doing this. And I think they had something like 30 foals one year, 20 were male, 10 were female. It's like they start getting more males when we want more females. So we said, right, why can't we sex the semen? So we went to the bovine labs, we sexed the Suffolk punch semen, we AI'd the Suffolk punch mare, and there's still a 95% chance it was going to be female, but there's still a 5% chance. And it's a long 11 months to wait. I've never looked between a foal's back legs so quickly when it's born. And it was female. And that was a real milestone. We're thinking, God, if we can do this, why can't this be thrown over to other species? Yeah. And now they're doing this in America with rhinos. Yeah. Right. And that's the story we're going to hear today, how we've thrown this technology really from maybe the human, the bovine, equine, and now onto other species. So it really did work well.
Yeah. It's transforming, isn't it, really? The ability to conserve lots of different species that would naturally probably go extinct, and and that would be a huge loss, wouldn't it, to the world, really, seeing these endangered species go.
But it's disaster. We've got 50 to 100 species a day go extinct, so we've got to do something about it, and it's frightening. But it was a real sort of light bulb moment. We thought, if we can do this, and what it's like, it's about your team around you, what makes it, and we have an amazing team. And that's really drives us. But I've got, there's one story. I don't know whether you could put this out there or not. But before we move on to Nature Safe, we had a stallion come to us called Roger. That was his
Roger the stallion. Was it Roger the stable boy?
And this is a very true story. And I get quite stressed out in the stud season, and the phone was ringing. And our telephone number it ends in 666-295. The local hospital is 666-292. So the digit above. And once a month, we get the wrong
caller.
Just stop tapping the table for us.
Yes. So
once a month.
Once a month, we get, is that Whitchurch Hospital? And we said, no. Anyway, this particular time, this lady rang up and she said, I was quite flushed. And they said, I'm just ringing up to see how Roger is.
Oh no!
There we go. And I thought, he's getting all right. We collected semen off him yesterday, and his libido is really good, and we think his pregnancy results are going to be brilliant. And there was like a pause, and he said, "Roger." I said, "Yes, Roger. Yeah. He's a bit keen. His libido's really good, and I think this pregnancy result, looking at semen quality, I think we're going to get good pregnancy." He said, "Roger." I said, yes, Roger. And she said, but I only dropped him off at the hospital, my granddad off to have his toenail removed yesterday for the hospital. I went, you're ringing about the hospital, not Winston. And it was, one of those sort of funny moments. Oh, God. Yes.
You've got the wrong hospital, the horse hospital.
Yes.
Brilliant.
She must have got the shock of her life thinking, oh, my God, what have you done to my granddad?
Brilliant.
Totally random.
Anyway, so that was, but no, on a serious note, the technology that we use now to throw across, I believe, and what you're supporting, and we've got more to tell you about it, is this the most amazing charity and what it can do for conservation in the future, using science and technology. So there's lots of conservation efforts out there, obviously, which are doing amazing work. And we're just one of those tools in the toolbox. And really, your help and what you're doing, I think you do realise it, but it makes such a difference. I mean, it really is. And it's not just about the donation you've done. It's what that donation is doing to conservation.
Yeah.
It's massive.
Yeah.
It really is. So,
It's how far it goes, isn't it? I mean, that's with the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
So can we go back a little bit here? Because we're kind of blending the story here.
Yeah.
So obviously you've built Stallion AI and
Yeah.
you kind of looked at protecting rare breeds within the horses and also have a business in terms of, I guess, raising thoroughbreds in terms of racing.
No, not racing. So racing's one area that we don't do.
Oh,
so
okay.
the only time we go into racing if they've got a fertility issue and we go in and try and sort, but they're not allowed to do AI.
Oh, I see.
So
Okay.
theirs are all natural, basically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Every horse you see galloping around track has been conceived naturally.
Oh, right.
Why is that? Is that to prevent any competition? And
I don't know. I'll talk about it on this podcast.
Yeah, you can tell we are completely naive to this.
Yeah,
He
but I'm
knows a bit about
interested.
horses.
I can see the reason for it because obviously at the end of the day, what you want to do is control your numbers. And if
course.
AI was to come in, these amazing racehorses could suddenly do 1,000 mares, and then you've got to think of the inbreeding and things like that.
yeah, okay.
But obviously, maybe in the future there's a way of controlling those numbers, and we really believe that actually AI will have a positive effect in the future. But that's the powers that be, and it's a very, it's a huge sport out there.
It is.
for
I mean,
sure.
there is it is a proper industry, isn't it? British horse racing industry. So it's very much controlled.
So,
But they are looking at in trying to improve that genetic stock, aren't they? They sort of talk about it, but
do.
they haven't really embraced the technologies to really help them. So I think they're in a bit of catch-22. They're not really sure.
I think that's another podcast.
Yeah, it is. we'll do that another time. But
You're right.
It is. You can see how much of a nerd I am on the horse racing as well.
Me and Toby are out of our depths on
Yeah,
this
yeah,
one.
sorry about
Talk
that.
race cars and I
Yeah,
I know about
yes,
that.
Yeah,
stuff.
we'll talk about climbing in a bit.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
But the racing industry, yes, it's separate to the sport. So we're a sport horse, and we had this amazing stallion that came to us. He won gold at Rio, he won gold at London, and he's called Big Star. And he was we've had some amazing horses coming in, but when you have this, with it, because he's not a racehorse, he's a show jumper, and we can do this AI. And it's quite a lot of pressure on you. You've got millions and millions of pounds worth of horse under your care. It's a lot of sleepless nights. But yeah, he really helped catapult us as well, exporting. And the beauty about it, you can export those genetics all over the world by freezing the semen down and just sending the genetics out.
Right, wow. But it was that business that led you then to start Nature Safe, because you realised actually there's this opportunity to bank. You'd learned how to bank genetic material through this work. So do you want to explain how that kind of came about?
So it came out, I went for a trip in America. I was asked to go and do for the Livestock Conservancy in America, which is a bit like the Rare Breed Survival Trust. They're trying to save rare breeds in America. And they asked me, what new technology out there do you think can help rare breeds? So I met up with a guy who's doing genetic preservation out there using tissue. And I thought, that's a pretty novel way of doing it, because we're always talking about sperm and eggs.
Yeah, always talking about guys, aren't we?
Tissue. And so I thought, well, if this can be applied to sort of cats, dogs, horses, cows, pigs, sheep, and that side, why can't it be the other side? And actually, San Diego Zoo have done something called the Frozen Zoo for many, many years. But no one really in the UK or Europe or a lot of countries virtually around the world have done one collectively and setting up these hubs. So we thought, and it wasn't just me, there's a team around us as well. We thought, well, why can't this be used holding the whole DNA? And so, yes, San Diego's used it for a while, but they were sort of on their own doing that. So we thought, well, why can't we do this in the UK? And that's really where the light bulb moment came to start preserving tissue. And tissue, without a shadow of a doubt now, and we've just seen it expedite, not just in Nature Safe, across all conservation efforts for livestock all around the world now. I reckon there's going to be biobanks nearly in every single country now, whether it's food security or whether it's conservation. Tissue is the future, really, when it comes to preservation for both those attributes, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
So
Sorry, I was just going to say what's interesting is that we had a podcast a little while ago with Dr. Tim Child, which was talking very much about genetic material from other skin cells that could contribute to the new gametes of the future.
Yeah,
so
artificial gametes.
That is exactly, I think, what you're talking about here is collecting these genetic material cells, important cells that could provide the genetic competency for future generations.
Definitely, there's the ability to turn a skin cell crazily into a sperm and egg now.
That blows my mind.
Yeah.
My little head
weird.
just goes bang when you say something like that.
Yeah.
And in the human side, they've been looking into it, and on the mouse side, they've already done it in China.
Yeah.
I think with any of these tools, it's slightly different when you've got on the human sector, the conservation. The human sector, obviously, you're trying to see what's here and now, what you can do for fertility.
That's right. Yeah.
We're banking, yes, for the here and now, but we're banking what use will that cell be in the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And yes, at the moment, we've got these, like you can either do the cloning or you can do the turn a skin cell into a sperm and egg or things like that. But a lot of it we don't know.
Yeah.
And but what we do know, if we don't bank, we have nothing in the
correct.
tank. So I think there'll be so much more will come out of a tissue sample in the future. In the next 10 or 15 years' time, we'll say, actually, we can do this now, we can do that. But without that genetic material, we don't have anything. So yes, the human side is already using these tools, I think, already.
Yeah. Well, I think we're certainly aware of the technologies that are there. Whether they're ethically correct to use them in human, sort of species or even other species is a big question mark. And I know Tim was very keen to sort of express that there is no law, actually, that allows you to sort of think about, having offspring that is not derived from eggs and sperm. So, so that it would be illegal at the moment to even consider that sort of process for humans. But we know this technology is there. It's exciting, isn't it, really, for the future?
It's massively exciting. As I was coming back to before, by the time we finished this podcast, 4 more species would have gone extinct. That's frightening.
Is it really that much?
There's between 50 and 100 species a day.
Wow.
That's
We
mental.
don't absolutely know the exact figures.
That's a shocking figure, isn't it?
But more species come along, so extinction happens normally, but it's 1,000 times more than it should be. And I always think, if you look back, if you've got kids or whatever, and they look back at us, and if we don't do anything, they'd be looking back at us and saying, well, you had the ability to save these species now, but hopefully we are doing it, and we are making a difference because we have got that technology. But with those many species going extinct so rapidly, we have to do something now. Things like insects are really, really difficult, but we've actually got a project maybe looking at trying to save the butterfly, and there's all different things going on behind the scenes. So and some of it's very accessible, but a lot of it comes from the human sector. The human sector have been incredibly generous in supporting Nature Safe. And we need these technologies, we need them to help in the conservation one. But I'm afraid it's a very sad fact, but it is a fact. It's not, it's not sort of fake news. You hear about it on the news quite a bit, but I'm afraid it is really quite sad how many are disappearing on an hourly basis.
And so just tell us a bit more about Nature Safe then. What have you kind of created there? What's your mission? What are you trying to achieve?
So Nature Safe, I know we live and breathe it, but we really believe we've got an amazing charity here based in the UK, and the acronym SAFE is quite cool because the acronym stands for Saving Animals from Extinction, which is quite a nice acronym for that. And we've got an amazing team of scientists and zoo people. It's a big team effort how we've come together, and the idea is when any animal passes away at a zoo, they've got up to 5 days. That's the beauty about it, to send that sample in. So at the moment we're looking at, we had a clouded leopard that passed away the other day that came to us, and we froze that down.
Not the whole leopard.
Not the whole leopard. No, just a tiny bit of it. Literally just. And that's the other thing we need. 6 mil. I mean, if you look at a tiny piece of paper on the corner of a piece of paper, that's all we need. 6 mil. That's all we need. Ideally, we need 3 lots of 6 mil. So we don't.
Are you talking about the gametes, or are you talking about skin cells?
Skin cells.
Skin cells. Yeah.
So we do take the testicle and ovarian and sperm, but that needs to be with us within 24 hours.
Yeah.
So it's quite time sensitive, and also animal sensitive. In other words, if it died of an illness or old age, those are going to be less viable.
Yeah.
So I'd say I think it's something like 80% of the samples we get in are skin samples, and the rest of the gametes. So we're really going down the skin sample, because if an animal dies on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, they literally stick them in the post, and we get them on Tuesday, process it, and away you go.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to do, and it's cheap. You know, it's sort of between 100 150 pounds to process each sample.
Yeah.
So it's doable, it's easy, but obviously there's 6 or 7 million species on the planet, so we've got a long way to go. And a lot of the insect side is a real challenge, and so certain animals are easier than others. But
And so then what you're doing with those skin cells, you're freezing them and just storing them.
So we freeze them down. There's a certain process that we have to go through, which is we get the skin sample. We have to make it really clean. When we first started, everything wanted to grow in that incubator, because you're putting it in environments and get those cells to multiply. So when we first did it, it wasn't quite clean enough. But now we've under a flow hood, and we clean those samples so nothing else grows apart from those cells. But to start with, we like the ear, because the ear is one of the fastest regenerating sort of cell types in the body. But we can use any skin and we literally just freeze that down. And then on some of them, we did a cheetah. A cheetah that we did in 2019. We got the ear cells out. We thawed them out. We put them in special culture, and after 3 or 4 days, you had several hundred cells, and that's got all your DNA in. It's about 2.5 billion or 3 billion DNA make your eye color, your hair color, and everything. And then after a week, there's millions of them. And the beauty about this technology, which is so good, if you collect loads of semen, say you have 100 straws of semen, once those straws are used, that's it.
It's all gone.
It's all gone. This you can just replicate.
Just keep going.
Just keep going. And this is, you have an infinite supply.
Wow.
So this is where this technology is so exciting for conservation. It really is. And it's got all the DNA. Then you can obviously do so much more with that side of the stuff.
So you can then extract that DNA and then create, in effect, artificial gametes. You call them artificial gametes, but they're
So has that been done on a rhino? No, it hasn't. But it is soon to be done on a species being done on mice. So yes, there are some really cool technology out there now, but we've got banking for the unknown. We don't know what's around the corner. We don't know if that species is going to go extinct tomorrow. We don't know what catastrophe is going to happen. So it's absolutely vital that we bank these tissues for the future generations. And it's pretty crazy. We've got a nitrogen tank.
I was going to say, they're not just the standard freezer that you have
next to your peas and your McCain chips.
These are
Where did I put that lesser spotted tiger? Oh, there it is.
Next to the peas. So this nitrogen tank is minus 196. And we got effectively in this tank, there's 256 different species sitting alive, crazily, in our lab. They're not running around, obviously, because they're frozen there. So they're frozen down in time, ready to be brought back to life at a moment's notice, in theory, as and when needed.
As and when the technologies are available.
That's we were really lucky, as we're at the forefront of that technology. Now this has been rolled out so much more as well.
And if you got that technology within Nature Safe, is that technology usable within the UK to grow those cells to create the artificial gametes? Is that happening in the UK?
So we grow the cells up, cell lines, and we freeze that down. But the actual growing the gametes, there is people in Cambridge can do that. The cost is really high at the moment, it's enormous. But that will always come down. You know,
so more commonly adopted.
And it's great because it's seen now this technology is so important, and it's just great that we were there at the right time to start banking. And you never know what's going to land on the doorstep. So we had something called the mountain chicken frog. Is it a frog or is it a chicken?
I don't know, but it lives up a mountain.
I'm going frog.
Yes.
There you go.
There you go. I think there's less than 100 left.
Wow.
And we had to do epididymal sperm extraction of this frog. Well, when you're dealing with horse testicles, they weigh about 300 odd grams. Mountain chicken frog's testicle weighs, less than a gram or a few grams. It's tiny. And dissecting that up. But imagine the pressure. Imagine this arrives in your lab and there's less than 100 of them. And a lot of the time it doesn't work because you're doing a species that had never been done before with this. And it's quite a pressurized environment thinking, God, you've got this animal and its genetics are relying on you to save it. And sometimes it doesn't work, but you learn from that because if that process doesn't work. So you try and get it right. And that was amazing for that side of it. And yes, it's sort of worked. We got some sperm cells. We froze it down. We froze the tissue down. But then we did an animal called a von Sera, and I've never heard of these species. Sometimes
That sound like Italian food.
Yes. Sounds delicious. Doesn't it?
Nice glass of red wine with it. It's fine.
And it's an amazing animal. And we collected semen off it. We froze it down. And as I say, I'd say 60% of the time when you thaw it out, the semen doesn't look viable at all, and then you move on. But this one was incredible. The semen the next day when we thawed it out was like 60% of it's moving. We thought, wow. I mean, I think around this table we can all get excited about sperm.
Yeah.
But outside this, people listening to this podcast might think, it's a bit weird. But actually, it's life. You're creating life again. And when I stood up and did the conference, I always thought I had the best job in the world until I met you guys and think, gosh, you're creating human beings. It's incredible. Yeah. So, but anyway, when we thawed it out and you saw that sperm cells, it's amazing. All the disappointments can be outweighed by this. Yeah. And you're thinking, not just have you saved that species, you've got a protocol for that species in the future. And that's nearly as equally as important as that particular one.
Yeah.
So we have these massive spreadsheets now with all the different cryoprotectants, because it's the same with human side. We need different cryoprotectants. We need different mediums, different percentage of egg in there. There's all different cryoprotectants. And just for your audience out there, it's what we're doing, where we're different. If you were to get a bottle, a glass bottle, and put it in your freezer full of water, what would happen to that glass bottle when it freezes?
It'll crack.
It'll crack. And every cell does the same. Now, you must obviously know all this bit, but there's lots of biobanks out there, and what they do is just freeze tissue down, and they just look at that DNA. And because the cells are non-functional, what we do is literally take the water out of that bottle. We dehydrate that cell, in other words, and that cell stays functional for 10, 20, or 1,000 years' time. It does not change. That's the difference.
Is that vitrification?
No. But it's just
it's sort of almost snap freezing, but removing that water content.
But do they not do that with eggs as well?
Yes, they do vitrification. Yeah, that's correct. And there are other. And it's the same technology we use for sperm. We've been dehydrating sperm basically since 58, I think was the first foal that was born by this. And we use glycerol, basically, it's one of the cryoprotectants. We use something slightly different, or we use DMSO and things like that for the cells. But basically, in layman's terms, we're dehydrating that cell, freezing it down, and then we can warm it up after 30 seconds and come back to life. I'm always amazed with sperm cells. I've been freezing semen down for 30 years. And whenever you thought, it's minus 196, it's suspended in animation, you're thinking, then after 30 seconds, it springs back to life.
And they're swimming. And it's one of those cells that is just unique, isn't it? In the fact that it's probably the only cell in the body that actually moves. I know blood cells move only because it's being pumped around. But they're quite static sort of cells. The sperm cells are quite unique.
Creature, isn't it?
I love it.
It is incredible, that technology. And of course, we've shared it both ways from the human side. And obviously, that's why there's a good interest on the human side. And that technology is shared right across. So it is absolutely fascinating now what we can do with science and technology.
What is that technology that's been shared? Because it sounds to me like there's been a lot that's been happening in the farming animal side.
Yep.
That, like say, the first frozen sperm was back in the 50s. It's like, first IVF was 1978. Like, what's happened? So what's been kind of shared across the?
So the cryoprotectants is a big thing. Yeah. So glycerol was a standard one. I think you may even use that most of the time on the semen side we use something called DMF9 dimethylformaldehyde, and there's MF methylformaldehyde, and there's various combinations of that. We're always doing R&D. We spend a fortune every year in R&D trying to improve that.
Optimize everything, isn't it?
And sometimes that can be thrown across the human side and vice versa. So you're always, and the beauty about the animal side, and this is where we've had quite a lot of the human people come, we can do a lot of trials on the semen, which I know you're slightly on an ethical side from the human side. You've got to be very difficult. So that's where we're very lucky. We can collect off a stallion, we can split that ejaculate 7 or 8 ways, and it's very easy to do trial work, and it's not a problem to do that. So we can do so much research and development on that, which helps with the fertility, and that's what's changed an awful lot since the 1950s, is we can freeze semen off stallions that we can never freeze 10 or 15 years ago, and that's always changed. And we're just about to go and see someone in London for a new technology, because what we always wanted, we want to have a sample that's good as a fresh sample. So we're looking at another technology, which I'm not even allowed to go into the details of it, but it sounds really exciting, of freezing that product like a fresh product, because with frozen product, it only has a short shelf life. Once it's thawed out, that is. It's going to be frozen for thousands of years, but once it's thawed, it only lasts 6 to 12 hours. So we always want a product that's going to last 2 or 3 days. And obviously fresh semen, quite often, especially with the horse, can do that if it's the right quality. So I love this world of tech. Tech's moving on at such a rate.
Yeah, it's rapid right now.
When you're driving a car.
In every industry, it really is.
Or climbing a mountain, or trying to save species from going extinct. And so, it's absolutely vital to grab that technology wherever it is and use it for
it's
good.
all about the data, isn't it, really, and making good decisions with it. And that's what I find absolutely fascinating, because there's so many parallels to what you're doing to what we're doing. And in many ways, I look at what we're doing almost 10 years behind what Tullis is doing, and yet you probably argue the difference on the other side, but the human side is so much more conservative, I think, in progressing with technology.
A bit more tied up with the ethics, aren't we, on the human side?
And certainly in male fertility, it's still relatively new. So I've been battling for the last 7, 8 years, 10 years, trying to encourage more technologies to come into the male fertility side. And we're getting this huge resistance, and you're going like, why is this a huge resistance? And then tell us, we were like, give me an, I'll take that and progress it in the animal world.
And ever since that conference, I have to say, we had so many people come up to us and I said, I'd love to see if some of our work can be thrown back to it, because we have so many different mediums, so many different extenders now that at our disposal, and we make them all up in a lab because we can. And there may be one of those that really might help with the human fertility side on that. So you just never know.
Definitely. Well, I'm always scouting, so if you find anything, tell us, share it back.
I do think the mediums is one thing, which is really important, but I think the cryo technology, I think there's a long way to go on that. I'm really excited about the cryo technology. I think there's some different ways of freezing, even if we can I think it's using helium or something, getting really cold down to minus 240 or something like that. So different types of freezing technologies out there, which I think is quite exciting, which might evolve in the next 4 or 5 years.
So we were at a conference earlier this year, right back in January, and I remember us talking about it on a podcast a couple of months later, the Jurassic Park conversation. And I bet you get this all the time, don't you? Theoretically, it's doable, isn't it, now?
Yeah, so they've got a group called Colossal, which wanted to bring back the woolly mammoth. We are not really about de-extinction, about bringing things back. It's exciting. I know a lot of people love talking about seeing a woolly mammoth sort of roaming around. But what does that really do for conservation? Yes, it's a great story. There's a lot of money being pumped into it. Colossal now are actually doing a lot on the conservation side, and it's quite interesting what they're wanting to do. But with the money they're putting into it, that technology is going to be really helpful to us, for the work we're doing. But bringing back the dodo, yes, it sounds exciting. It'll make a great news, but really for the environment that's coming in, certainly the woolly mammoth, how is that going to play a part in that? But the technology will be interesting. No, we're not about de-extinction. And the problem with what they've got at the moment, I believe, is that obviously we talked about the broken glass. They've got the DNA of these woolly mammoths, but those cells are non-functional. So whether it's going to be a hybrid between an elephant and they're going to get these genetics, because CRISPR technology or gene editing is the future medicine, isn't it? And obviously they can use those technology in theory to bring it back. But is it going to be an exact woolly mammoth? I don't know. So we slightly. It's interesting from arm's length, but it's not what we're about. We're about saving species.
No, it's that question, isn't it? Because we can, should we? And I think this is especially when you bring this into the human side, the ethics of all of this, and Yeah, it's like, wow, it's amazing technology, but should we be using it?
Yeah, it's the ethics is quite an interesting one because obviously the cloning side, the Brzezowski horse was the first one to be cloned because there's cloned horses and cats and dogs, but they're using these technology in a positive way. And even Sir David Attenborough said on his last, and he looked at the cloned black-footed ferret. They virtually went extinct, and they saved a sample back from 30 years ago.
Wow.
So the proof of concept is just showing what we're doing actually is right. And his end comment, and I use it in a lot of my presentations, and he said, if we so wish, we have the ability to save any animal, or at least its tissue, until we know how. Now, this podcast is going to go on for 45, whatever it is, but literally he summed up everything we said
in a sentence.
In a sentence.
It's just unbelievable, isn't it?
And he's and if he says it's right, it's got to be right. So I think that just shows the importance of it. There's lots of tools out there.
And you're not just doing this in the UK, are you? You've been all over the world helping with biobanking. Is that
This
right?
year has been crazy. I feel a bit sorry for my carbon footprint I left behind, but it's important to get at. So I do feel, and I stood up at the conference and I did say I thought I had the best job in the world until I met you guys. But yeah, it's been amazing this year. It's been incredible. We've been to India, setting up a biobank there. We went to Japan. We went to the Faroe Islands. We had the first. Some of it's equine, some of it's different.
That trip,
and
wasn't it?
incredible. And then the Faroe Islands, with the horse side, they've only got 87 horses left or something, 21 stallions. We were collecting off these stallions. And there's only, we collected off 16 of them. And it was like gale force wind. And I thought, this ain't going to work. And we were in the barn and they said, we've got to collect this one outside. And I've got this amazing video of literally the wind and the rain is horizontal.
It was, wasn't it?
I thought, there's no way this stallion is going to perform. They brought a mare out, and luckily, and these aren't well-handed, they've had a head collar on them, that's it. But these Faroese, got to call them horses, they're not called ponies out there, although they're quite small, these horses. Luckily, their libidos were brilliant. And this thing, I think, it was incredible. It was gale force wind. And we collected semen off him, and rather him than me, I must say.
Gale force winds.
I know. Yeah. And so that was an experience, and I must admit, that's one thing I really, really enjoy is going around the world, setting up this lab, totally different environments. The one place you get this amazing lab that they've built. That was one they did in Japan. Incredible. And then you get to some places which, on the conservation side, money's a bit tighter. They
it's a farm shed,
and it's a farm shed. It is literally that's it, and it is literally farm shed. But to me, it doesn't matter either way. You're just doing a bit, and then we've got some other ones in the background, and we're trying to get over the line, which is incredible. We'll talk about the Africa trip in a minute. Is hopefully we're setting up one of the first ones in Africa, which will be incredible. Incredible.
We had Professor Richard Lee in earlier this year. I don't know if you've met him, actually. You probably ought to. He's done a lot of work in the veterinary field, and we're talking endocrine disruptors, chemicals, the decline in sperm quality. Obviously, we were looking at it from a male human perspective, but we talked a lot about dogs because that's where his study's been. I just wonder, have you seen anything in the work that you're doing and the research that you've done in terms of the decline in sperm quality across some of these rare breeds?
I must admit, I've seen the stats on human. However anybody gets pregnant, I'm amazed. It's something like 95% abnormal or something. I just find that incredible. Because for us, we want at least over 50% viable morphologically. Otherwise, it's not good enough. So that's But we did a study. Again, this is on the equine side. Over 20 years, we did 1,100 stallions, and it's 11,000 ejaculates from those stallions. And we looked at all the data associated with it, and there was a 10% decline in 20 years. So there's 5% every 10 years. And I know there's a trend on the human side. We were trying to put what that attributes to. Were we collecting off more rare breed horses? Because as soon as you get inbreeding or rare breeds, the testicles get smaller, you get a lower sperm count, higher abnormalities in the sperm cells. So we've still got to do that work, but there was definitely a shift within 20 years of a 10% decline. I think it's even quicker on the human side. I don't know. But so, yes, to answer, it definitely is. And I was speaking to somebody on the thoroughbred side, and they said, well, our stats have stayed the same for years, but with the new technologies out there, actually, they should be a lot better. And I even think right across the board, I think the fertility is dropping.
Yeah.
And it's just that we're using these new technologies to try and bolster that. Every time it sort of drops, we're finding something else to try, like ICSI and all these other things that are out there. I was watching a thing on the news this morning. Is it 1 in 7 couples now are facing fertility?
That's right.
I don't know. Saw that
1
on
in
the
6,
news this
1 in
morning.
7,
So it's, and I think on the human sector, the animal sector is no different, especially when you come into rare breed species, because soon as you get, it's called the extinction vortex. When you get inbreeding low numbers, you get this inbreeding, and then it's nature's way of saying, no, this should not happen. And they literally spiral out. You get higher neonatal death. So some of these horse breeds, they have 30% neonatal death, which is unsustainable. And if you're a horse breeder, you put all your money into it, and if your foals, 3 out of 10 foals are not making it because of the inbreeding, you sort of say, well, I can't afford to do this. And then that breed sort of disappears very quickly. So that's why you need these genetics.
Yeah, you need that variation in genetics, don't you?
You do.
In the breed itself. So that makes it really quite challenging, really.
Yeah.
And it makes it challenging for livestock as well, and future livestock. And I think that's what Richard was saying. There's been so many, what's really interesting is that the sort of impact of like microplastics and so forth is actually penetrating all the way through to Inuits and the food that Inuits are eating from the sea. So where do they get that from? Well, it's a whole pathway that human beings are pumping pollution into the world, and it's transferring back into livestock. So
I'm glad you spoke about the livestock things that were, because you won't even realise this. You've sort of led me into it. So there's something else we're saying called the livestock biobank, same as Nature's Safe, but for livestock. And livestock, with the invent of AI, one bull now can do, thousands of offspring.
Yeah.
So really with these technologies, it's helped. But what it does is that gene pool's narrowed, and you've only got to get an exotic disease come in that gene pool is susceptible to. And our whole food security is at risk. So now this is where government are really quite keen to set up these livestock biobanks. And we've already, within Svarsvold Seed Bank in Norway, we've teamed up with them called Norgen, and they've set up a working group to look in how they can save their livestock by using exactly the same. They came over to see Nature's Safe. They went, wow, this is amazing. How can we do this for our livestock? And I believe, I think there'll be a livestock biobank and a conservation one in nearly every country. And they might even mirror. Because you've got the seed bank.
That's right.
Millennials. Where's the one for animals?
No, I think it's really important, that we look at all of the different impacts that we have on our lives and on future lives and future generations. So whether it's livestock, whether it's conservation for extinct, endangered species and so forth, but also human beings as well. So we want to make sure that we've got the right technologies to support good conception in humans.
Sometimes feels like we're on a bit of a knife edge.
It's quite scary, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, when we had the conversation with Richard about all these plastics that are found in dogs' testicles and like in Inuits and whatever, and
whales,
and now what we're hearing,
we are on a knife edge, and I think we hear about it on the news all the time. I mean, I think it's the World Wildlife Fund has just brought out another paper. 78% of wildlife has disappeared in the last sort of 30 or 40 years. I don't know exactly, but it's frightening. It's really frightening. And we've got technologies now to try and save them. But, people say, well, what about habitat and things? Hopefully somebody else will get us all. We can't do everything, but our focus is just to save that DNA down. And then hopefully our children's children in the future can go into that tank. 'Cause that's who we're doing it for. Yes, there is a bit of here and now, but it's really for those future generations. They will look back at us if we don't do this and thinking, you had the ability to save all these species and you didn't. So, but now we are. So it is, and yes, it's really sad sometimes, but actually doing this work gives you so much hope. And it is the most rewarding thing. And, with the charity that we run, and we have we've got Debbie over there who's our COO, who's really transforming the charity. And we had 20 zoos signed up, I think, in April. We have over nearly 40 now.
Cool.
So it's a really exciting and being so up close and personal to some of these animals is amazing. Like collecting semen off elephants is amazing. Hearing every breath that 5-10 elephant make, and being able to do that, I think it's just we feel so lucky to be able to do it. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's quite special, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it must be amazing.
Yeah.
And just for our listeners out there, Nature Safe is a charity. It's a registered charity, and you're obviously raising money.
Yes.
Can you describe some of the other things that you're trying to do in terms of your mission right now? It's I think from what I'm hearing is about conservation. It's trying to bank down those cells, but there's a lot of collaborative work as well. So do you want to describe a little bit more about what the charity, why you're trying to raise money, and what's it going towards, and what you're going to do with the money?
Yeah, no, thank you, Michael. And yes, we are a charity and we need funds, and we can't survive without that. And say it's roughly about £100 roughly if you were to freeze that sample down when it comes through the door to processing, it's about £100. If you look at all the running costs of the charity, actually it's more like £350 if you put all them. And our mission is really to save as many species as we can, bank them down, and there's a lot of collaborative effort with zoos out there, and so we've got lots of zoos like London Zoo and other zoos out there, and it's gone from literally 20 zoos to 40 zoos. So anytime an animal passes away at a zoo, they literally pop a bit of its ear or tissue, and it's as simple as that. So we couldn't survive, well, not couldn't survive, but we couldn't run this without the zoos coming on board. But the zoos is only one part of it. Our mission is to set up these hubs all over the world because we need 50 different genetic lines from each species to make it sustainable. So we need 50 mountain chicken frogs that are genetically different. We need 50 elephants that are genetically different.
It's not just one.
It's not just one.
It's not just one. You've got to have that diversity within that gene pool, within that species, to make sure that it's viable for the future. Yeah.
Because that diversity, you don't know with global warming, you might have a few that actually can't cope. Their DNA can't cope with the ever-changing climate. But that DNA that's over there, which may be less interesting, actually could be the vital one that has the DNA profile that is really can cope with the ever-changing world. So it's really important to get those 50 different genetic lines. So it's massive. So we're always reaching out to people, and it's not just about money. Yes, we need funding without a shadow of a doubt to keep going. I feel we're a really exciting place for Nature Safe, but we need door opening. Somebody might be listening out there, might know David Attenborough, might know somebody. We'd love to hear from you from that side, because that's virtually as important to open doors for us.
It's the network.
And speaking to you, when it came from that conference, we had so many embryologists came up to say, how can we help? I mean, it's literally a queue at one point. How can we help? Problem is, we're a very small team. So we've got Debbie, who's our CEO, who runs the charity full time, and then we've got another person, Grania, who's our zoo liaison officer, and then we have Alice, who does all the media side. So we're incredibly small, but so yes, we want people come to us, and we've had 2 or 3 embryologists come around the rabbits recently.
You had some of the embryologists from the human side come in to see what you're doing, haven't you, and trying to get involved with some of the research side.
And that's great. From our side, until we grow bigger and get bigger, we need that big funder. There's no doubt about it. We need that big lot coming in, sort of £250,000, £500,000, and then we can expedite the charity. And the need for it is so huge. What we're doing now is incredible. And I've got some, quite exciting news to tell you. Some of the projects. So. One project we're looking at is coral. Coral is one of the fastest climbing species on the planet. We lost 50% of our coral since 1950. And linking with ZSL, London Zoo, and a load of other people, we hope to freeze down the first, certainly in Europe, to freeze coral sperm and egg. They usually spawn once a year around about November time at the Horner Museum. So we're partnered up with these people. The UK native species, I don't know whether you know this, and unfortunately, when you look into these facts and figures, you suddenly come across these quite sort of daunting facts that the UK is one of the most nature-depleted countries in the world.
Wow.
Which is frightening. So it is scary. And so we're really trying to focus on the UK species. And quite an interesting one on that is we did raising money for Save the Hedgehog. Everybody loves a hedgehog. I love a hedgehog.
We all feed one, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. There's something so special. So that's something else we're putting out there, saving UK species. And I thought, this is going to be dead easy. We can just get roadkill, get whatever. But actually, it's more difficult UK species than it is zoo animals. Because with zoo animals, the health of that animal, the profile
really
of
monitoring.
Fed properly.
If you get, exactly. If you get something I'm not saying we get roadkill, but if we get something that's recently died, that's a nature, has it died of disease? Because we don't want to be banking diseased animals. So actually, it's much more trickier. But that's a heavy focus we are doing now is UK species. And butterflies, we're looking into that side of it. And Jimmy's Farm, who's come on board, they've been amazing for us. So we're looking at maybe the butterfly side. So, and then we had somebody the other day saying, "Oh, can you help us with the snails?" And we just said, "Look, we can only small team, but there are so many people out there wanting to help with their particular species, which are cry for help, which is really heartbreak because we want to do everything we can, but unfortunately the finances will determine that. So that's well, hopefully one day we get this big funding. We had an amazing thing a year ago. I don't know if you've heard of the Earthshot Prize. It's the biggest prize in conservation. We were actually shortlisted for that. We unfortunately didn't get the £1 million, but we got through. I suppose it's a bit like the semi-final. We got through all the stages until the last bit. So we'd love to do that again because we really believe we've got something very special. But yes, it's that big donor or begetting or raising
lots of small bits as well, isn't it? Really,
small bits. Well, we
for all those listeners out there, if you've got a little bit of cash and you want to conserve the planet,
definitely,
then Nature Safe is a great way of donating. So
£5, £10, everything. We've only got to get. You're thinking 10 lots of 10, and you've saved tissue.
Correct. Yeah.
And we've always said that every time we look back at the people that have given us those small donations, they are the ones that have really helped get Nature Safe off the ground.
But it's keeping that heartbeat going, isn't it, in the charity? It needs continuous funding. So
100%. And so that's with all the people that have done that, and obviously with yourselves of what you've done for the charity as well, it's massive, and it costs about £5,000 to save a species. And you might think, well, that's a lot of money or not a lot of money. It's a lot of money when you've got all the millions of species out there, but actually to saved species. So that's what it takes.
It wasn't a hard one for me.
I know.
It's going like, what can I do for doing something for the planet? And I think what better way of doing that? Not only because I know you, Tullis, but I know the passion and the belief that these types of projects are going to give for future generations, and I think it's just brilliant. So,
and so just wanted to put one more thing because it has come back to us slightly. But there's people look at charities sometimes. Oh God, they all get paid. None of us do. It's only we have 3 employees, and they're the ones that get paid. None of the directors, no one gets paid for this. Every single penny, whether it's £1 or 10,000 or whatever, goes directly to saving species, and we can hold our heads up high and saying whatever money anybody donates, we promise you every single penny will go to saving species.
That's incredible. And then you go and do some big challenges to really raise the profile, like climbing mountains.
Yes. I was going to play that. We haven't got the Ain't No Mountain High enough on your
No,
keyboard.
we haven't got that pattern.
we can add that later, don't worry.
Maybe there were some crickets up there.
Yeah.
I think that was the
Probably
nighttime.
wasn't, was there? Probably not much wildlife up there at all.
As soon as you went over, but the only thing that was up there was a crow.
Oh, right.
So, yes, we took on I like doing a challenge most years. 2 years ago, although looking at me, you wouldn't think so, I did the Great North Run. That was fairly challenging. But we thought we'd upscale a little bit, and why don't we go and climb a little mountain in Kenya?
Just a little bit.
Well, that's Tanzania, actually, and it's the highest freestanding mountain in the world. And Tony Noble, who's one of the trustees, he said, I wouldn't mind doing that with you, Tullis. And there's an amazing lady that's now one of our ambassadors. She's called Verity Smith, and she's a blind dressage rider, lives in France, but she's English. And her friend, who has affected her eyes, she came up as well, called Zoe. So the 4 of us said, right, yeah, we'll give it a go. I think whether there was a bit of naivety there, I'm not too sure, but we thought, we knew this was going to be tough.
Yeah.
But none of us realised actually how tough. And I know thousands of people do it all the time, but by God, never again, never again on that. So, it was an incredible experience. It really was, but it was seriously tough.
Yeah. How much did you raise for the charity?
Raised, just about £50,000.
Wow, that's a fantastic
which is
amount,
incredible.
Isn't it?
So amazing.
Yeah.
So on that
So that's
side.
10 species.
10 species, yeah. So it's it was incredible. And obviously thank you for Tim for obviously helping us out on that. And It took us 8 days round trip, 6 days to get up, 2 days to come down.
Yeah.
And I must admit, the first few days were quite, well, not too bad because the altitude was okay. But when you're with Verity, amazing lady, she was sort of had her arm around yours, and you had to tell her where every step was, and you just thought, incredible. I could see everything, and she's obviously with her disability, how she coped with that, I'll never know. Not knowing where to put her foot, every step was a different one, and it's. But certainly the last bit, I couldn't even look after myself, let alone look after her. So
it's just amazing trust, isn't it, in your colleagues to help you get up there. But maybe it was good that I was just reminiscing about, bungee jumping, and the person said to me, "Don't look down." But if you can't see, but you're just being led, it must be incredibly difficult. But they must have, the amount of trust that she must have had in Zoe and yourselves to help her get through that. So
and we had amazing guides.
Yeah.
And then on the last day, you woke up at 12 o'clock at night. They said, right, we always knew it was going to be tough. And so you woke up at 11 o'clock because you had to start hiking at 12. And we couldn't understand why midnight. Why do you walk up this hill? Well, they said, it's the sunset. I think that is part of it. But I really believe if you could see what you're climbing, you'd never do it.
You didn't want to do it. You go like, oh.
So I think it was like their sort of way. All you could see is these little head torches going all the way to the top. And no one really spoke. It was so cold up there. Your ice, your drinking water, and you had to drink 4 to 5 litres a day. And that started freezing up. So in the end, you were shoving your ice down your front to try and keep it from freezing up, because when you drunk that, you're drinking ice water. That virtually gave you a headache. You were on lots of tablets because you're obviously with anti-sickness tablets you took, and then altitude sickness ones you took, and that sort of on the last day, I think we were rattling when we were going up, but it was and it's so cold, and I had 2 layers of gloves on, and I remember speaking to Tony, and he was saying, "God, my fingers just all go numb." On. We both had a pair of socks, so in the end, we had a pair of socks over our gloves,
over your gloves, over 2 sets of gloves.
2 sets of gloves, because it was so cold when you were going up there, the wind chill, because you were going from plus 25 when you started to sort of minus 50, minus 20 at the top, but then you got the wind chill. But when you got to the top, the first bit was the crater we got to. It's called Gilliman's Point. And then I think there are a few points. And then somebody said, well, actually, I think these may be people who tried it before and actually passed away years ago. And you think, oh, crikey, this isn't a good, is this really?
Is this true?
This is really, but I think, with the support we had, actually, it was amazing. They really helped you going up there. Yeah. And you got to Gilliman's Point. And I think the top was, I don't know whether it's another 50 or 60 meters higher, but it was about half a mile. That last half mile took us 2 hours. You were literally just doing 1 step, 2 step, stop for 5 minutes, get your breath, doing your shoelaces up, got you out of breath. So it was, and I think everyone's different, and it doesn't have. Yes, you need to be fit, but somebody may smokes a lot, may go up there just as quick as other people. So
altitude sickness can get anyone. Like the super
fittest
fit
people in the world can struggle with that. Yeah.
And then when we came down, we went back to Gilliman's Point. I must admit, I started sort of getting really tired and falling asleep. I said, I just need a nap. And the guy said, no, you don't go to sleep.
Not allowed.
Not allowed. And then he was giving this ginger tea. Oh, my God. I could not drink that stuff. That ginger tea. I know some people love it, but I couldn't. And so I was sitting there and I thought, right, put my sunglasses on. He's not going to notice. So I was actually nodding off for about 5 minutes. And the next minute I got the shake and he said, do not sleep here. Right. And there was 2 guys got either side of my arms and they said, you need to get down now. And we're perfectly safe, but they just know if you're on your own, you fall asleep.
Yeah,
that's it. Wake up.
Yeah.
Because so we got whisked off the mountain, and actually going down it took 2 hours to get down because it's like shale, and we just sort of skidded, and actually we got down really, really quickly. And as soon as you got more oxygen, you were fine. And then we got down to the base camp, and then we had another 4-hour walk to the next place. And poor Verity, when she got down to base camp, I don't blame her. She was absolutely shattered. So she actually got on a stretcher with wheels. We call it a wheelbarrow. She said, "I don't want to go in the wheelbarrow." She did, but she's great. Her last words when she was getting wheeled off, she said, "It's all for nature's sake." She said, "So funny."
They weren't her last words.
Not her last words. No, not her last words. God, last words.
Just the last little bit.
That's the end of this week's podcast.
Yes, just don't want to finish it there. And then we got to the last bit, which was of the day, and we'd done 16 hours of walking now. And we sat around a table. It was like 4 broken people.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
We just looked at each other. What the hell have we done?
Yeah.
And we thought, crikey, what have we put our bodies through? What have we done? And it was just quite looking. And then it's amazing what a night's sleep and a bit of food the next morning.
And a bit of oxygen.
A bit of oxygen.
A bit more oxygen.
Can do to you. So, and then it was, I think we were all absolutely pushed the limit, but
And all for the right,
What
cause.
a great story, though.
Yeah.
Tullis. It's one of those things you probably won't do again, but
Definitely not.
But what a great story, though. I mean, it's ticked off a lot of boxes for a lot of people. But it just shows you the determination that you can do what everybody else can do to help other species on the planet. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think when you've got inspirational people leading you up there. Like Verity and it was incredible. I always called Tony the glue that kept us together. Everybody played that part, and it was incredible on that side to get it up there. But that was amazing. But that wasn't the end of the trip.
No.
And I think one of the most poignant parts of the trip is when we came back down. We all shaved and washed and everything else and cleaned ourselves up, and then we went to see the last 2 northern white rhinos. And this is really, when you see the last, 2 of a kind out there, it really brings it home to you. Thinking, crikey, how important what we're doing.
Yeah.
How can, rhinos have been on this planet for 50 million years or something, and us as human beings
Destroyed them.
Have
in
ignored them.
a few thousand.
Ignored them and destroyed them. Yeah.
And totally. And there's 2 left, mother and daughter. One's infertile, they're still getting eggs off the other one. So there is a bit of hope. They've frozen down, I think it's 30 odd embryos now through ICSI, through the technologies of the human world. So there is a very small glimmer of hope, but it's going to be tricky for those 2. But you really looked at that. And I remember, actually wish we could hear it. I'm not usually stuck for words. That I found it really difficult to do a piece to camera in front of those 2. I was, Debbie had put this sort of script together, and I found it really difficult, really difficult.
It's really poignant, isn't it? I mean, especially how connected you are with different species, and these 2 and the last 2 on the whole planet.
And then you saw and they took us to the gravestones. So they got these gravestones of all these different rhinos that have been killed, and it was just killed by poison arrows, killed by poacher. They haven't lost one for poaching for 7 years there now, but you saw the needless extermination of these rhinos, and those gravestones was another very sort of sobering, or looking at that made you think, God, we've got to do something about this. And that made the whole point of Nature Safe, and hopefully we will set up a biobank in Kenya or in Africa at some point in the future, which will be incredible. Absolutely, because we can't. It's not just about here; it's about setting up these hubs all over the world,
everywhere in the world.
It's just absolutely incredible. What you're doing, what you've achieved so far, and what you're going to achieve, and to take on something like Killy as a challenge to raise money, and what that was for you, kind of physically, but emotionally, mentally, and then to have that moment with the rhinos afterwards is just incredible. So I think we all raise our hats to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do people find you? How do people donate?
So donate. We've got an amazing website, Nature Safe or nature-safe.com, and there's a link there. We honestly, any of your listeners today would love to hear from you. And I say, yes, small donations. It's not just about donations. It's about getting people on board. We are a small team, so we do get quite a few people. How can we help? And sometimes we suddenly say, well, actually, can you help this way, or can we help? But sometimes it's a bit difficult for all the volunteers. But we'd love to hear from you. And it's about opening doors. It's about getting other small donations, but also corporates on board. We really think we can help. People need to be ticking that green box and really make a difference. And we want to help, the corporates, sell more stuff or whatever by donating to us. We can really help you as well with a bit of, it's really important on both sides. I run businesses myself, and we get people knocking on our doors asking to donate, and nowadays, money's tight, but we really believe we've got something so special, and we, from a corporate or an individual, that donation makes such a difference, and really to helping species on this planet survive for future generations.
Well, you've got our full love and support of all of this. We'll put all of this in the show notes so people can find you and donate. But I think it's been amazing, Tullis. Thank you so much for coming in, giving up your time and sharing your passion, your vision and your story and the Nature Safe story. It's been brilliant.
So, well, thank you for your support. And I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg. I think it's a really exciting partnership and journey that we're on. And as much as it's sad for what's happening with many of our species, I think there is a shining light there somewhere, and I think we can make that happen.
Definitely.
Really special. Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.